The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Okay, welcome everybody. February 23rd, 2024. Matt Edwards here, and the signal is on the air. A lot of action going on right now. Both the House and the Senate are in session. They're debating bills. We're going to dip in just a second, but for those who were expecting a vote on House Bill 517, which was the bill that would allow citizens to take action against the state for violating their First Amendment rights of free speech and free exercise of religion, to actually take a case, to bring a case against a government entity, and have that be happening in state. That bill 517, we put out a big call to action for that. That has been pulled back into committee. So it will not be voted on the floor today. It is going back into committee. We don't know exactly why. We will find out why. We expect hopefully that we'll have a representative on later after the floor adjourns to hopefully give us some insight into that. So I know we didn't change the board back here, but trust me, it's February 23rd. Let's head straight to the House though, because right now they are debating. Actually, let's go to 317 because they're taking a vote on Senate Bill 317. I'm sorry, guys. Let's go to the Senate. We'll go to the Senate, do 317. This is the Don't Tread on Me license plate bill. There was some good, healthy debate over this, and it looks like they're doing the vote on the on this bill right now. This is the Don't Tread on Me license plate. It was a little interesting, but there was some interesting debate. Let's hear the vote tally as they go forward right now.
Just. Lee, Lenny, Lend, Nichols, Okonowitz, Robbie, Ricks, Ruckty, Schroeder, Samaroff, Taves, Trakel, Van Orden.
Mr. President, 60 seconds.
Sarah Van Orden, you have 60 seconds to explain your vote starting now.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too have voted against specialized license plates since I've been in the legislature, so I don't want to break my record here. So I feel like my vote is not against the Gaston flag. It's against having specialty plates and so many of them. And like the good lady from 22 said, I think we did legislation to help curb that. So my vote is a no.
Senator Van Orden votes no.
Ward King, Winder, Wintrow, Seiderveld, Adams,
Senator Adams, you have 60 seconds to explain your vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I love the Gadsden flag. I hang it from my own house proudly. However, my first year in the House, the legislation came forward to try and limit the amount of specialty plates we had. And although this does go to a good cause, I've never had to vote on a specialty plate. And the senator from District 9 actually brought up some valid points. So out of caution, I'm going to vote no.
Senator Adams votes no.
Anthon, Purkey, Carlson, Grow, Guthrie, Lind, Ricks, Ruckte, Taves, there is also a paired vote. Senator Lakey votes aye. Senator Taylor votes nay.
The vote count shows 18 in favor and 15 against with 2 absent, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Bill 1317 is passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved, and the bill will be transmitted to the House.
Great. All right. There you go. The Gadsden flag license plate has passed the Senate. We'll head to the House. The funds raised from people applying for this plate go to safety classes, youth safety classes, gun safety classes. So that's interesting. There seem to be some not arguments, but there seem to be some debates. They would say it's not against the flag; it's against the principle of having this sort of thing. So we'll check in and see if some of those arguments were interesting. But the bill, nonetheless, the bill heads over to the House. Let's go back to the House now because. If we can, Representative, I keep getting everybody mixed up back and forth. My apologies, but Representative Birch is debating on House Bill 521. House Bill 521 is basically kind of like a tax relief package. It's going to lower the income tax rate again, and it's going to offset some costs and move some money around to help the cities recoup some more funding because they're going to get rid of levy elections or whatever the case may be. But that's what's going on right now. So let's get Steve Birch up here and hear what his gripes are.
It puts this 2023 impact in perspective. The $5.2 billion in sales tax exclusions from revenues more than the entire 2023 budget. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that we need to get rid of all sales tax exclusions. Most of them may make perfect sense. But if a review process showed that keeping 80% of them and the rest of them could no longer...
The good gentleman's point from 28 about, I too am in favor of this bill, but there were some parts that gave me pause. There's one district in this bill that will receive $100 million more than any other school district. And that gave me pause, and then I think about that school district has 40,000 kids, desperately needs 2 elementary schools and a high school to meet the growth. When I think about, to the good gentleman from 28, his point about the vast majority of school districts who will not have the money that they need for a new building, I still have to consider that under this bill, they're going to get more money than they would have received. Part of that money that they will receive is consolidating existing pots of funds for facilities. Lottery dollars, the bond levy equalization program. Making sure that we understand that if you take money out of your back pocket and put it in your front pocket, it's not new money. And when I consider where the bond levy equalization program came from and the bond levy index that helped facilitate that program, it was in direct response to the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court ruling in 2005 that said this body was not adequately funding public schools under the uniformity clause in our Constitution.
Okay.
We weren't doing it.
Representative Galaviz there, Democrat out of a district there in Boise. Once again, always saying that there's not enough money for education. So this bill is seeking to try and help, bring more money to help, repair the infrastructure of our crumbling schools that we keep hearing about all the time. It's interesting. We played that clip last week of $330 million that was approved in a special session that nobody knows where that money went. So again, but this bill, we'll keep an eye on it. Looks like there's going to be a lot of debate back and forth, and we'll keep eyes on that for you. What I wanted to get to though is this morning. Back over on the Senate side, this morning, Senator Foreman, who has been, trying to get to the bottom of the pandemic. And by that, I mean, what happened in our government when local authorities, state authorities started just, issuing these mandates to close your stores, to arrest, people worshiping on the streets, to institute mask mandates, to put up plexiglass everywhere, and to have your kids get sent to school with their faces covered. This all happened, It actually happened, and it happened in Idaho. We know it happened in California. We know it happened in New York. Right? Even the freedom paradise of Florida, it happened there too. But it especially happened here. And a lot of people were elected running on, in the past couple of years, running on an idea that we need to get to the bottom of this so that it can never happen again. And so Senator Foreman last year brought forward a bill that started to just outlaw and tell the government that it can't do a bunch of different things. That bill didn't go anywhere. He has a bill this year that does a similar thing, but that bill doesn't seem to be going anywhere and getting any attention. And so he came up with, well, at least let's put together a task force. So he issued a Senate Concurrent Resolution 110. And this morning in the Senate State Affairs Committee, this would allow and authorize the Legislative Council to appoint a committee to undertake a study of the state of Idaho's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's a simple page and a half resolution where he outlines a number of things that happened during COVID. And I'll just read a few of these lines. I know we did this before, but I want to update you on where this happened, and then what happened with this resolution today in committee. So these resolutions are made up of a bunch of whereas. These are statements of fact alleged by the resolution, and so because of these reasons is why he wants to institute a committee to look back at all this. So he's recognizing in this resolution there have been over 500,000 suspected cases of COVID-19 in Idaho, during 2020, 2021, and 2022. There have been over 5,000 deaths in Idaho reportedly attributed to COVID-19. Whereas the governor of Idaho declared a state of emergency in Idaho in March of 2020. Whereas numerous Idaho municipalities canceled scheduled events and restricted public gatherings. So on and on and on. The governor issuing a stay-at-home order for all non-essential Idahoans. These are facts that happened. The governor of Idaho ordered houses of worship to be closed. He was sued for that. The government was sued for that, and they won. Idaho's medical facilities reportedly reached record numbers of emergency room visits, and on and on and on. In here, the mayor of Boise ordered all indoor dining and drinking to stop at all restaurants and bars. That happened. The state of Idaho made available and accelerated the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, and continues to encourage citizens to obtain the COVID-19 vaccines. That happens a little later in here. And so because of all of these things, and there's a bunch of more on here, you can read all about it. All 4 of Idaho's major state-funded universities ordered students to wear face masks. So all of these things happened. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of the legislature, so forth, here, there, and so forth, are authorized to appoint a committee to investigate the conduct and overall response of the government of the state of Idaho to the COVID-19 pandemic. So because of all these things, he's just saying, let's appoint a committee to look at this and find out what went wrong, what went right, what we can do in the future, and what we should hold back on. We have some clips lined up to show you how some of this went down. We are going to share that with you right after this quick break. So we'll be right back.
Spending this money surplus, which is not a surplus, it's an overcharging of the taxpayers.
Idaho is a conservative state. That's why leftist billionaires and woke progressives are pushing the ranked choice runoff scheme. Their goal, a radical anti-gun equity agenda. Repeal stand your ground and constitutional carry and pass red flag gun confiscation. This is about taking our guns, destroying our freedom, radicalizing Idaho and changing our state forever. Stop them before it's too late. Open primaries and ranked choice voting will destroy Idaho. Don't let leftist billionaires turn our state into California.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty, for honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, February 23, Idaho Signals on the air. We are watching votes in the House and the Senate today, but right now, I just went over the Senate concurrent resolution number 110. Asking for a committee to look at the response of the state during the COVID-19 pandemic. Senator Foreman has been a bulldog on this issue, a pit bull, if you will, and he's getting increasingly frustrated because it doesn't appear that anybody with leadership powers or anybody in a position of power inside the State House wants to help move this sort of accountability along. And at this point, he's not even asking for people to be held accountable. He just wants to look back on the history of it. So Senator Wintrow, Democrat out of District 19, apparently took some offense to this resolution calling out the mayor of Boise, and she had this to say to Foreman, which I want to set up here, that her reaction here could be the reaction of many people, many officials who look at this and find offense to it. But I'm sorry, you did us dirty, and we want accountability. We want to figure out what went on. And so Foreman had a great response here. So let's watch this first clip here of Melissa Wintrow, senator from District 19, with Senator Dan Foreman. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Senator Foreman, just a couple questions. I guess I'm going to follow up on Senator Lee's question a little bit, is that when I picture a committee of legislators trying to investigate, I'm not a private detective. I mean, certainly we can call testimony and so forth, but I don't know how we're going to get to the bottom of things when we have, as we've already noted political beliefs and ideas and philosophies, and it just feels like another fight to me. But the question I have is, I noticed there's a statement about Boise and its mayor, and I do know that other cities ordered the same indoor dining and those kind of things. So I'm curious why we've labeled Boise and not just Idaho cities.
Senator Foreman.
Yep, Mr. Chairman and Senator Wintrow. Kind of a two-part answer here. With all the brain power and intelligence and life history we have in the legislature, I would hope that we could do this. Step aside from our personal pet peeves and personal religious bias maybe, or political bias, and do an unbiased and open and honest investigation. I have absolutely no doubt with the people we have, we can do that, and we should do that. To answer your other question about Boise, Boise's our largest city, and I didn't want to list every single city that did that, and you're right, a lot of them did. I've never met the mayor. I have nothing good or bad to say about the mayor, and I don't live in Boise. I can assure you the only reason I put it down is because most of the folks here are from Boise or know about Boise, and it's our largest city. And when you close something in the state's largest city, it has a maximum impact on a lot of people. So it was an effort to improve the emphasis of my presentation that our largest city had to suffer through this. Nothing against mayor at all. Never met the woman, so.
All right, what a statesman there. What a statesman, really laying it out there. I'll tell you another reason why maybe you could have pointed out Boise and not just say all cities did it, because all cities didn't do it. All districts didn't do it. I know the Post Falls School District never instituted, or the Lakeland School District, one of them, maybe both of them, never instituted a mask mandate for their children. So it's a little disingenuous to say that the entire state did it, when it actually didn't. So, so fair enough. Melissa Wintrow continued her examination with Dan Foreman here, and so we wanted to play this exchange as well. So go right ahead.
Foreman, yeah, I don't think that's appropriate, and here's why. The impact many times that I feel from being in Boise, not that you intend it, but many times legislation that we pass has an impact to affect my city more than any others. And I think that to just single Boise out there is inappropriate, and it feels targeted. Not that you intended it, but it feels that way, right? And I am just not sure what more study of this is going to do, quite frankly, other than continue to divide. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Foreman, you're welcome to comment.
Senator Wintrow, hopefully the laws we pass don't affect Boise any more than they affect any other part of the state, because our job is to be fair and even, and anytime we pass a law, it applies to everybody in the state of Idaho. So I disagree with your comments there. Secondly, I've made it quite clear, I'm not picking on Boise. I have a lot of family in Boise, and like I said, I've never met the mayor. So let's not get off in the weeds, please, on this Boise issue.
Senator,
The issue is constitutional.
You're good. We're good. Just
okay. Enough's enough with that.
Don't see any other questions.
Yes. Never again. These people that just say, why should we look back on this? I don't want to look back. It's just going to create more division. Are you kidding me? No. You don't just get to walk off into the sunset and leave all this destruction behind. There was somebody that came up there and talked about the physical, or the mental and psychological and physical ramifications of everything that happened during those 3 years, those 2-3 years. It's incredible. And they just, we just want to walk away. We just want to walk away from it. No, man. Senator Foreman, you keep going, brother. You keep going. We're behind you. Send Senator Foreman your love, you guys. Send him your support. We need to. We called it out last year when he had this bill. We called it out earlier this session when we got going with this stuff, and we want to make sure that we've got Senator Foreman's back. So, unfortunately, shocker. Here's the news flash: the committee didn't pass the resolution, so it died. Senator Ben Taves recommended that or motioned for the resolution to move to the floor of the Senate, and there was no second, so it just died. So here we are again, stuck back again. So that's the big highlight from this morning. We may play some more clips from that. Just to get you up to speed, but I want to shift gears here because we have a columnist with us who hails from the eastern side of the state, and I admit this show has a lot of a north and west bias in terms of who comes on the show and who we get to hear from. But Brian Parsons is with withdrawconsent.org. He writes a fantastic column over there, and he also is a contributor to AmericanThinker.com and has agreed to join me today. And Brian, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am well. I wanted to check in with you because you're in a part of the state that has a lot of folks who don't seem to be as conservative as some of their counterparts in the North or in the West, and that goes from down to the committee level all the way up through the legislature and even into Congress, as you're in Congress in Mike Simpson's district. And you just put out a column a couple of days ago that kind of talked about how the old guard, if you will, of the Republican Party was either grasping at trying to take control again or reacting to the more of the conservative grassroots control that the party is under right now. So I wanted to get your perspective on this. What can you tell us, sir?
Yeah, I think if I could peg it to any one thing, it would be who controls the local party. There are actually a lot of conservatives on this side of the state. I'm here in Bannock County, that's Pocatello. Just north of us is Bonneville, and we had some firebrands like the Chad Christensen's of the world. And that's where Janice McGeehan is from as well. What it boils down to, like I mentioned, is party control, and the local party here is it's exclusionary by design. It's impossible to get your feet in the door. Prior to moving to Idaho, I was a precinct chair for Mill Creek in South Salt Lake.
Wait, real quick, Brian, real quick. I think maybe your microphone might be tucked in a little bit much, or it's a little interference there.
Is that helping at all?
Oh, there we go. That's much cleaner. Yeah, go right ahead. Sorry to interrupt, but go right ahead. We
no,
want everybody to make sure we hear you.
This is a first for me too, so I apologize.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I was in Mill Creek in South Salt Lake. I was a precinct chair there. So when I moved to Southeast Idaho, it was my intention to help any way that I could. And so I sent emails. I tried to make phone calls, reaching out to our local representatives, especially after I had some issues and I needed help getting them responded to. And when I did, I could get, Mark Nye or Elaine Smith. She's retired. He's now deceased, but they would respond to my calls and my emails, but Dustin Manwaring wouldn't. If he finally did respond, he wasn't much help at all with anything. And so I tried to get involved with the local party to see if we could fix some things, and they just make it extremely impossible. I mean, they don't publish calendars of events. They don't. It's my understanding they don't communicate well with their committeemen to let them know about meetings, and so we get these surprise quarterly central committee meetings, and so that's got to change. And we've got some things in the works. We're trying. We're making some inroads. We've got a great county commissioner here in John Crowder, and he's established a conservative coalition. And I believe to date we have roughly 400 members. So there's certainly a market for for real conservatism here.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like when people get motivated and they see some leaders pop up that can rally folks. I believe I've talked with John Crowder a couple of times over the past couple of years or so, and he's really been able to build this coalition. So good for you guys out there. So you said something that struck me as interesting there. You said that the central committees they don't meet regularly. They don't communicate too much, and they meet maybe once or once or twice a year, or every few months or so. Is that what you said?
So I attended last month's meeting, and it might have been this month. I don't know, but it's my understanding that their intention is to meet quarterly on a regular year, and then monthly in an election year.
I see.
And I was alerted about this meeting by a committee member who basically was not told about the meeting. And put out an memo. Hey, get out here. We've got a meeting. I don't know what they're going to do, but get as many people there as you can. And so we showed up, and there was a lot of us. I'd say in the range of 30 to 40 coalition members, and there was only 17 committeemen present, and I think that's out of 55 or so. So they couldn't perform any official business. And it's my understanding also that that's kind of the norm. Like they never do any business because nobody ever comes to these meetings. So.
Right. All right. Well, tell me about your website, withdrawconsent.org. You've got a lot of great writings on there. I've been following it for a while, and like I said, you've also contributed over at americanthinker.com. But tell me the impetus behind your website here, and what people can get out of it by reading your columns and keeping up to date with you.
Yeah. So I was pretty involved with the Ron Paul revolution, right? Ron Paul politics. And when he left politics, I backed off quite a bit, and I just kept a cursory thumb on things. And I actually was not like a Donald Trump supporter when he ran in 2016, but I was thoroughly entertained by the enormous meltdown that ensued. And so I decided, I'm like, all right, well, I got to give this guy a chance. And then, come to find out that this permanent state is running a coup of the guy before he ever got started, obstructing from the beginning. And I have regular conversations with my father. He's in Pennsylvania, and my mother, who's in Georgia. So obviously some hot button election states. And when the election came around in 2020, after COVID and the race riots and all the other nonsense, it was like, okay, they're going to do something, right? And when they actually stuffed the ballot box and installed this pudding brain guy, I was frustrated, and I was worried about what we were doing here in Idaho to make sure the same thing that happened in Pennsylvania and Georgia didn't happen here. And I was on the phone with my father. I was like, I tried to contact representatives, and once again, Democrats called me back. Republicans did not. A lot of the responses are typically, well, that could never happen here, blah, 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 And so I was speaking with my dad, and he said, hey, write your local paper and call them out. And so I did. I wrote the Idaho State Journal, and Ian Fennell over there. And it's not, a conservative friendly paper. They're maybe less biased than the Statesman or some of the other ones floating around. And all the same opinion columnists float from, their columns appear in all the papers. But anyway, Ian said in the letters to editor, he said, hey man, this is better than 90% of what I get. He said, it's too long. Would you mind if I publish you in a column? And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And so I just started submitting things regularly to him, and then I needed a place to publish those. And so That's why I created this withdrawal consent, which, it's all about consent of the governed. These people that are in office and hold power, I don't give them my consent for 99% of the trash they do. And so it's about, finding community in amongst the government, I guess. And so, yeah, I've been writing. I hit it hard for about 2 years. I was publishing weekly. And at times feeling like I'm shouting at the wall, I submit to the American Thinker as well. I get a pretty big national reading or following from that. And I get interviews and professors calling me from all over the place saying, "Hey, let's talk about your articles." And so that's cool. It's really just kind of letting other people know they're not alone.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to have you on, because we got a lot of folks that watch us on the eastern side of the state there, and I'm glad to share your work with them. I know you have Citizens Alliance. You plug us on your website as well, so I do certainly appreciate that, as well as many of the other good organizations across the state. So, Brian, thank you so much. We've been scrolling your website at the bottom here to follow you at withdrawconsent.org. But is there anywhere else where people can follow you, whether it's on X or Facebook, or where can we check your stuff out?
Yeah, so there's a good chance if it gets, certainly go to withdrawconsent.org. You can find me, I think it's @ Brian Michael P on X. I'm on Gab. And then possibly in your local papers. I submit them to everybody, but not everybody publishes. Dispatch and Tribune, and then the Idaho State Journal here locally. So.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Brian. We'll check in with you again, and make sure you keep in touch as well.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. We got a lot still to get to, so we'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those 2 founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Okay, welcome back. The Senate has adjourned for the day. The House is still debating House Bill 521, which we'll dip in there and listen in just a second. You can keep that shot up there. That looks great. But I wanted to tell you about. Sorry, guys. How about you guys direct the show? I'll just talk. All right. Sorry. I just wanted to point out that even though the Senate's adjourned, they were in there for an hour today. But remember, on their calendar, when they start each day on the floor and their session, the third reading calendar is where they get a chance to vote on all the bills. And there are 4 pages of bills that are stacked up, ready and waiting to be voted upon. And they only met for an hour today and got through maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 bills. They've got 2 pages of Senate bills, and then they've got tons of House bills that were passed in the House that are waiting to be voted on over there. So they don't have any committees at the end of the today on Friday. I think there might be one committee that's meeting, but there's a lot of other meetings going on. It is Friday, but this just means that when we get into March, these floor sessions are going to go much longer. But that's per the norm. So I'm not necessarily making a judgment. I'm just saying there's a lot of bills that still need to be voted upon. Sorry for all the shuffling of the papers. Okay, let's listen. This is Representative Lauren Nicochia. This bill is trying to send money to schools to fix the infrastructure. And these Democrats keep saying, we don't want that money. We want to raise taxes and gather more money. We need more money. I mean, that's what it seems to be. The argument seems to be. So she just wrapped up her debate. Let's see if somebody else pops up, and we'll hear from them. Can we take some guesses on who we'd like to hear from?
The first one.
All right. We'll listen to this guy.
The committee that's going to look at building plans like our good representative from 22 suggested. I don't think some people realize when you look at plans how much a curved roof or a curved wall adds to the basic cost of a school. In an architect's body of work, it looks wonderful of all the great things they've done. But to have to pay for that is kind of a question. And the second part, maybe the most important as you consider that, I was an assumption of mine when you get on some boards and build buildings that when you spend that 15-20% for an architect, my words, you're also hiring a sheriff. The guy that walks around or gal that walks around and says you didn't compact the floors enough. That's not 12 bag concrete. Tear them out and start over again. And I'd always assumed that the architect did that. And frankly, it's pretty disappointing when you spend 15-20% of a project, they hand you pretty pictures, and it's all up to the general contractor to ride herd on that sort of thing. So just as we go forward with this is a bunch of tension, if you would, is who's going to be the sheriff in these building projects. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion? Hearing none. Gentleman 22, care to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel like I do need to address some of the concerns. Otherwise, I would try to just get us out of here quickly, but I will take a minute to do that. It seems like every time we give more money to schools, we get debate against it, that we're not giving enough. I don't know how to address that. I just don't know how to address that, and that's always a frustration for me. If we look at our budget last year, we gave schools $600 million more just last year than what they had before. 600 million more, and now we're doing more. And again, it's not enough, and I don't know how to address that. We keep adding to it, and we will continue to add to it. Distribution's not done for this last year, by the way. That's not been done. They do that on a quarterly basis, I believe, or 5 times a year, I guess. And that's not done, so more is still coming. So just wanted to address that. As far as the rurals, that came up. And as far as that they're not being funded enough, that the bond levy equalization was there for them. Bond levy equalization does not necessarily benefit all rurals. It benefits some of them, not all of them. West Ada actually gets over $1 million from that bond levy equalization, and they pass lots of bonds. The formulas are outdated and archaic, and it's not fair. This is a fair way of getting more money to them. Every district is going to be getting more money through this system than they would have the other way. So when we look at districts like Arbonne Elementary, that has 22 students, they were getting a couple $1,000s. They'll get twice as much. If you look at it over a 10-year period, they're going to get, to $100,000 more. I mean, this is a better deal for them. Can they go build a school with that? No, they can't, but we're giving them more money. We're trying. As I had mentioned ahead of time, this is not the end. This is another really good step getting us there. But I would remind everybody, this is a tax bill, and we're providing tax relief. And at the same time, we're able to provide more money to schools. I just think that's such a win on that, that when we look at that. I know the sales tax came up, big discussion about why are we looking at sales tax, and my good gentleman from 22 even, we've had those discussions, and he's right. He's absolutely right. We could and should be looking at how much is going into our endowment funds, how much is coming off timber sales, how much we can put out the door. I agree, absolutely. That's a big lift right now, and didn't want to try to add that also into this. Can we do that? Of course we can. Let's look at that. Can we look at our sales tax exemptions? Of course we can. We can always look at those. In fact, if we want to get rid of all of our sales tax exemptions, I'm thinking the number will be about 2 cents is what we would need to charge on everything. I think that'd be kind of cool. And we'd remain parity on that. But then again, remember what those sales tax exemptions are for. And then everybody starts to complain. And we can have that discussion, and that's always a good discussion, but that's not what this bill does. It just deals with trying to get more money back into our taxpayers' pockets, more money to the school districts, and that's what this bill does, and it does a good job of that. I'll touch briefly on the 4 to 5 day week, because I know that's come up. That is not something we will decide. In this legislation, it says the State Board of Education, by August 1st, will set guidelines on how that's going to work. And whatever those guidelines are, that's what you need to comply with. If you don't want to, then don't take the extra money. But it's giving them the flexibility to do that. Mr. Speaker, I could go on. You probably don't want me to keep going. So I won't belabor the point. This is a good bill. I'm proud that we as this legislative body are putting this idea forth, and would encourage your green light on this.
Thank you, gentlemen. Debate is closed. Question is, shall House Bill 521 pass the House? Clerk will lock the machine. The members will cast their votes.
All right, here comes the tally. Oh, this looks like a slaughter. A tax break and more money for schools, and
voted?
Democrats are against it. Democrats voting against funding schools.
Tanner.
Unbelievable. That's another headline for you. We've done that headline before.
Vote.
Democrats vote against funding schools. Democrats, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 Democrats. Green isn't there. A couple Democrats voted for it, looks like.
Hearing none, the title's approved. The bill be transmitted to the Senate.
All right, there it is.
522.
521 has been approved in the House. It's going to be sent over to the Senate. And once again, this bill takes money from some sales tax revenue, gives it to schools in order for maintenance and that sort of thing, and then is also it lowers the income tax. I believe we're sitting at 5.8 individual income tax. And I think this lowers it to 5.625, something like that. So it's not a huge decrease, not a full point or anything, but it lowers that and offsets that money with the sales tax coming in by sharing more sales tax revenue with the local entities. The sales tax that comes into the state is shared to the municipalities through a percentage amount. I believe it's 11% or something like that. This will increase it to a different percentage so that they get a bit more, remove some of the other things for these for them to run these levies and so forth, so that that way they can do this. So that's House Bill 521. I could have gotten all of that incorrect. That's why it's your job to stay on top of it and watch the bills yourself. But that's where it's headed. It's going over to the Senate for that. Okay, we started something a couple of days ago. House Bill 520 was on the second reading calendar today in the House, and that just means that it's moving its way through the process. So tomorrow it will be on the third reading calendar. It's not going to get voted, on Monday it'll be on the third reading calendar. It's not going to be voted on Monday unless there's a request to bump it up to the top. But House Bill 520 will make it so that no public funds can be used for gender transitioning surgeries. And this was a very contentious hearing that happened a few days ago. And we played a bit of Julian Young's opening for this bill. And I wanted to get to that, but as well as play somebody who came in and was opposing the bill. So judging upon the time that we have left, it looks like I want you to see these things. It's very important. I don't have to spend too much time talking about it. So let's watch Julian Young's opening, and then we'll do a quick movement into the next testimony. So let's watch Julian Young.
I bring to the committee today House Bill 520. House Bill 520 is the result of a conversation that began in the state of Idaho a few years ago as to whether the state of Idaho should be required to use taxpayer funds to provide surgeries or other medical procedures that would purport to create the appearance of the opposite sex in someone who was not that biological sex. You'll see in your folder an exhibit, which is a statement from the governor's office as part of a case. As part of the governor's statement, he says, to be clear, and this is the last paragraph in the statement, I oppose Idaho Medicaid using public funds to pay for irreversible sex reassignment surgeries, puberty blockers, or hormones for the purpose of changing the appearance of any child's or adult's sex. Consistent with House Bill 71 and my stated policy preference as to adults, I hereby direct you and the Department of Health and Welfare to take all appropriate steps to implement a policy consistent with state and federal law, excluding the same from Medicaid coverage. As a legislature, one of our duties is to oversee Medicaid and to define the kinds of services that are and are not covered. House Bill 520 stipulates, as indicated by the preference of the gentleman on the second floor and the belief of many in our citizenry, that it is not appropriate to use public funds, Medicaid dollars, to pay for these surgeries. I would say at the outset that while I have great compassion for those who struggle with these issues, I also understand that the idea of actually creating the function of the opposite sex is a scientific impossibility. We can give hormones and provide treatments that may create the appearance of secondary sex characteristics in an individual. We may deconstruct their healthy sexual function, all of this with significant side effects, but we cannot actually recreate or create, rather, the healthy function of the opposite sex in an individual. So these treatments, well-intentioned as they may be, have permanent side effects that leave patients dependent for the remainder of their life on expensive hormone therapies. And many of those nations in Europe who at one time were strong proponents for these are pulling back from them. So I think that it's conservative to say that they are controversial at best.
Absolutely. Great presentation there. She went on a little bit further, but that was the heart of the meat of it there. It's very concerning from one standpoint that these things are even going on, and there's a huge debate about that. But we should not be using public funds to contribute to something that is extremely detrimental. Okay, so that being said, a person came in with public comment. And I want to play this in full because there was a few questions. He spoke for 2 minutes, and then there were some questions that went back and forth. And I want to play this in full because I think there's a misconception out there that this is only happening in a very small part of the country. That these things, what's going to be explained here, that these things that are happening don't necessarily affect Idahoans. They don't affect Idahoan children, and if they do, they're in some different part of our society where we're just going to let it happen, and it's not going to affect the rest of us. So I think it's important to play this. So it is. It's all happening right here. So let's play this clip. This is a father testifying.
I live in Boise, and I'm here on behalf of myself. So I work in fighting online credit card fraud, and my kid was adopted. So she, she's amazing. She receives Medicare, and she does receive puberty blockers. I think it's really important that folks understand what impacts these bills are like for folks like me and my child, my family, because the experience, the feeling is that, it's this constant interruption of, how is life going to go for us? Do we need to move? Do I need to pick up my whole life? Do I need to throw away, the first time home buyer savings that I might have if I could stay here for 7 years? There's quite a few impacts. Puberty blockers are fantastic because it just puts a pause. For my kid, she's obviously, clearly a girl. She's amazing. She wants to be a doctor someday. And, for her, this is one of her first homes where she can feel like she can be herself. Being removed from her home, she knows exactly what it feels like to be unsafe, to have folks that are controlling and pressuring, who make her feel that she can't be herself. So now that she's in a home where she can express herself and, let folks know what matters to her, now we have these frequent bills that, continue to just shake our lives and say, maybe not. So she's faced all of this abuse. She's healing. And then there is this, I know I'm repeating myself, but this constant shaking of our lives. And I just need folks to know that, like we've heard earlier, trans kids already face so much unfair treatment. My kid has already had a Title IX investigation this year for sexual harassment based on her old name. She has described junior high as the most exciting, wonderful new thing in her life, and then she has to deal with that. And then she has to deal with these bills that are not really put forth in good faith, but rather just kind of a disgusting expression of using people as political pawns.
Excuse me? We don't want to impugn the motives of these bills are done in good faith by the sponsors. We just can't say stuff about the sponsors like that.
Oh, I feel disgusted by it.
Mr. Loper, that is a proper objection, and you talk about your feelings is great, but to impugn the motives of somebody saying they're bringing this for a bad reason is improper.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. I find it very convenient that a largely cisgender body is able to use procedure to, deny the experience of people who deal with the
Mr. Speaker, I
impacts.
object, and I think his time's up. Your time is up. Anyone have questions? Thank you for testifying today. Okay. Representative Allgood.
Yes, sir. Just as an understanding practical matter, when your daughter received medication, puberty blockers or whatever it was that process just going to the family doctor prescribing that, and then Medicaid paying the bill? Is that as simple as that work, or was it more complicated than that?
It was more complicated than that. First, there's evidence of social transition. There's evidence in her early years of drawing herself as a girl, right? So we were picked as the family for her because we had experience with being supportive and affirming of folks that are not gender, that are gender nonconforming. Eventually, we explored options. What can we do when puberty comes around? What's a non-invasive situation? And her doctors recommended that we could do puberty blockers because it's very easy to stop, and it doesn't really disrupt anything. It's a simple pause on puberty, and what I hear from their doctors is that they do care, right? The idea that we're here to hurt or mutilate bodies is extremely disingenuous. When the doctor says, I know that your kid is asking, when can I get surgery? And we tell her, well, that's a very serious thing, right? You're going to be 18, and then we can talk about it. But the doctor expresses, we don't advise that for kids because there are serious consequences if you go too hard too soon in that direction. It doesn't happen very much. And it's because doctors care. They want trans kids to have a happy life, to instead of having to face significant risk of suicide, to be able to be themselves and relax and, learn how to do violin and piano and tennis, and not have to worry about, are more kids going to harass me because I'm going to start, getting hair on my chin? Because the Idaho legislature has forced options away from my child.
Thank you for your testimony.
Wow. I'm going to let you guys sit with that one. Maybe we'll bring it up when this bill hits the floor, and we'll talk about it then. Thank you so much for joining us today. IdahoSignal.com is where you can donate to the show, send us a message, keep us on the air, and end like that. All right, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.